Welcome back to the Coaching Collective podcast. Today we are graced with the presence of Tim McKinnon from One Percenters. Tim's currently in Finland. I was going to say England.
Finland.
Yeah, looks like it's the middle of the night.
Same continent technically.
Yeah, and same weather as well.
I was going to say exact same
Wait,
weather.
Yeah,
yeah, it's pretty cold. It's like 1 degree out there at the moment. So
yeah. I
yeah,
actually
not
saw that on your stories, and I was thinking, damn, I would not want to be in that weather right now.
yeah.
We're in Melbourne, sad
But
enough.
you know what's people look at me weird, but I've never seen snow in my life. Like
Mhm.
I'm off the opposite. Like I'm like sitting here praying that it snows because I just want to see snow.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
like I look at the temperature thing and I'm like, oh come on, get below zero, let's go, you know.
Yeah.
And not because I like cold or anything. I hate the cold, but I'm like I just want to see it snow. So I'm like hoping it goes below zero.
Mhm. That's actually funny you say that. I don't think I've ever been somewhere that has snowed.
I've never seen snow.
Yeah,
Besides
neither.
being at the
I
snow at Mount Buller or
Yeah, I
something.
was going to say, I've done like
yeah,
It
retweets
doesn't
and
count. It doesn't
so
count. You're
yes,
in
it
the
does.
I haven't
mountains.
even been there.
No,
I
it's
can't fathom what snow like. I know it's frozen rain, but I don't know like what does it look like? How does it? What's the texture? Like I know it's like icy, you know, but like I just want to know what it's like, you know.
Man just wants to throw a snowball. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's it.
No, when I say I've never been to a city where it's like a proper like laid out city and it's rain and it's snowing. Do you get what I mean? Because
Yeah,
when we're in the
neither
mountains,
have I.
these are like very there's nothing there, you know.
Yeah, I think, and it's one of the things because I've seen pretty much everything else, you know, like desert, beach, rainforest, and I'm like the snowy winterscape is the only thing I haven't seen. So
Mm,
I just want to see that. I just want to see that once, you know.
yeah. We'll start with the introduction of snow, but yeah, man, introduce yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm a bodybuilding coach, comp prep coach, and you know I used to be a competitive bodybuilder, and you know the last couple of years has been really focusing on coaching, growing the brand, and just enjoying myself. I mean, there's not a lot to it, man. It's just I think for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm just overly passionate about what I do. Yeah, I've got big goals and big dreams, just like everyone else. So hopefully can shed some light on some different things today. I don't know, what do we want to jump into? Bikini mainly.
Yeah, I was mainly bikini, but to be honest with you, man, I'm having a nice little look through Instagram. You've got some pretty good accolades in all the categories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tough one. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like the elevator speech, you know, introduce yourself. Like every time I say I'm a coach, people look at me like, oh, okay, yeah, you're like everyone else on the internet.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not. It's a little bit different, you know. Comp prep, a little bit different. There's a very specific niche for that. Um, but yeah, man, I just love what I do. I think that's all it is. Like, always just been an absolute bodybuilding fan, and
Mm.
now I can compete regularly without the physical strain. So man, I'm loving it. Really,
It's
really grateful.
it's like sharing that passion as well because like I feel the same way and it's like you do not meet a heap of people that are that passionate about what they do and coaching itself because obviously I see a lot of people in the industry who are just there for the money, but I always say to Izzy, like if you retired me on $1 million a year but I could never coach again, I wouldn't take it.
Yeah, like, and what can $1 million buy anyway in
Yeah.
Australia? Like,
Not a lot.
A
it's
year
like
there for the rest of
you
your
could,
life and I still like I
yeah,
don't think you could. I don't think because I think if I was successfully retired with a lot of money but I could not coach, like there is no
mm,
way that I would have
exactly.
a life. Yeah.
I feel the same way. Yeah, we definitely have that in common for sure.
Hmm. I'd probably try traveling, and then I reckon after 2 years, I'd be like, all right, now I need to,
Now what?
I need that back now. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but no, with damn, I completely forgot what I was going to say then.
Nothing, I'll just add to that. Nothing
Yeah,
really compares to putting in the hours, you know, especially if you've had a long timeline with a client and, you know, especially if they've joined the team with sort of like that very first timer attitude where they just want to give it a go. Nothing beats taking that person from that position to winning,
Yeah.
right? There's not, I
yeah.
haven't really experienced much
Mhm.
that is equal to that feeling. It's
Mhm.
very special.
Yeah.
And
That loyalty.
anyone that's watching this that's experienced that knows what I'm talking about. And if
Mhm.
you haven't, I urge you to push for that because it is one of the most satisfying things I've ever done, honestly. And then it's like it gives you that sort of moreish, like I want to do that as much as I can. You know,
Mm.
that's what drives me.
I feel like even with myself, it's like I've competed 3 times now, and it's one of those things where I don't think I've gotten more joy out of someone else prepping someone else than I have out of my own preps. Like I reckon I enjoy prepping other people and like seeing how happy they are about their result than like my own result every single time.
Yeah. Yep.
Like
Yep.
they're elated when they come off, and it's just like I feel like it's great. It's like it's just an unbelievable feeling. And like even like you said, like I couldn't imagine how good it'd be taking someone from like first time or like the bottom all the way to the top for a win. It'd be insane.
Yep.
It's quite difficult to
Yeah.
get clients that exert that loyalty over an extended period of time too, this day and age. I'm not saying specific to myself, but just across the cohort. And
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I've seen a situation recently, which I won't share too much on, where a client was built up really, really well by one coach, and then decided when doing the next show to move to another coach and did really well in that show. And the reality was the individual, I'm not saying gender either, would have done well under the previous coach and that coach, but it was very disappointing for the previous coach. And there was no reason, because I know the context of the situation, no reason for that person to jump. It was just more shiny object. That person's got more winners. Like,
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
quite
yeah,
sad to see, actually. And it's quite sad because I sometimes think about that with clients that you sort of, and especially when you're pushing their shows back because you really want to get it right. And then it's like come a day where they say, all right, I want to try something new. And then it's like, oh, like 2, 3 years here. And it's like,
yeah.
sometimes depending on how it goes. You know what life's like. Sometimes you don't,
Yeah.
it's not unusual I've had clients I'm so close with, lifestyle clients, and then they drop off and it's like, we have to keep in touch, man. And then it's a year and like, I haven't spoken to that guy in like a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's definitely the dark side of coaching. It happens to all of us. Yeah, it's not really. There's no real solution for that. People will just do what's best for them at the end of the day, which is what you would expect, right? Like, if somebody's not feeling like the best for someone, then you would hope that they make the right decision for them. It's just when you know what's best for someone because you've worked with them and they can't see it. That's the difficult part, because you're like, okay, well, you've really got to be doing this, but if you can't convince someone, it's like and if there's any parents out there, like when you see your child making a mistake, you almost got to kind of let them make the mistake, because you don't want to be the reason why they never experience something. I think the one thing about that situation, because I've definitely been on the receiving end of clients do that, is just like, I think when they recognize that it may not have been the coaching style or anything, it's just their quality, their potential getting to that point. Is there's never like you just said, it's like it sucks that there seems to be a loss of relationship. You know what I mean? Like you see each other at shows and it's kind of weird or whatever it is. It doesn't need to happen. Like as a coach, I don't sign someone up thinking, oh, I'm going to coach this person forever. I sign them up because I got a job to do. It's like I make that promise that I'm going to give them my attention and communication, and I'm going to show them the way to get where they want to be. But I don't expect them. I don't have that sort of expectation they're going to stay with me forever. But I think there's this weird sort of energy around moving coaches or canceling or anything like that. Sometimes there may be an altercation or a disagreement, but if it's just simply a choice, you don't want to lose the relationship as well. That's the part that I don't like.
Of course.
I want to see people at the shows and I want to congratulate them and I want to be happy for them. But there seems to be this weirdness around changing coaches that, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you've experienced that before. It just needs to get
really contextual to me. Like I had a long-term client the other day who I've done shows with messaged me to say, hey, I've decided I'm moving on to another coach. But the way she went about it was very much like, fuck yeah, good luck. Do you know what I mean? Like, hope I'll keep in touch. But then there's other ways that people do it, and I just think, are you serious, mate? Like, just the way they'll approach it. Like, I can't give any really specific examples, but I've had situations where people move on to someone else because I think they can do a better job when you've gone all in. You recognize, like, this is a mistake that they're making, and then you soon after realize, they've realized now. But in that moment, there's not much you can do about it.
The grass isn't always greener as well.
Yeah. And so it's very much depends on the circumstance, because there's situations where people move and you just want nothing but the best for them. Like I got a client who he lived overseas though, and I said to him as soon as he stopped, I said, when you compete next, make sure you tell me. Like I want to be there.
Exactly.
It's unfortunately not the way it always goes.
I think that's the point I'm trying to make is like, as a coach, I invest like heavily into the athletes that I'm working with. And so it's not necessarily the loss of business that I care about.
No, it's never loss of
It's
business ever. Yeah.
it's the loss of
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
communication, that connection that you form. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't have an overly large friendship group outside of what I do for work. So, a lot of my clients are my social network, and so that's the thing that probably is the hardest part to deal with. It's not the loss of business. It's just you lose someone that you were very close with for a long time.
Yeah.
It's
Because
hard to get close because I'm similar to you. Sorry to cut you
yeah,
off. Like,
no, you're right.
I like forming that relationship with my clients, and my partner often
Mm,
says to me, you get so close with some of them. And I say,
mm,
because I enjoy it. Like that makes me really enjoy the
yeah,
partnership, the process, and you get to know how they tick, and you become almost feel like you're on that journey with them more so. Because there's also
yeah,
a coach who are a little bit more robotic, and you struggle to form that relationship with. And I feel like that's never as fun. It makes
yeah, yeah,
as a coach in a professional sense, it is good because you get the job done well, and you don't have to
yeah,
hear the emotional side. But at the same time, it's never as enjoyable, and the outcome's never as satisfying in my view. That's my
yeah.
yeah. Mm.
Yeah, and I think there's also that recognition. Sorry, that I know that there's going to be a polarizing thing. Like someone's either going to really like my personality or they're going to really hate it. Like I'm one or the other. I don't really have that sort of like passive type of personality. It's either you're on this side or you're on that side. And, I don't know. Sometimes someone's on the wrong side. And for whatever reason, we just never click. And so I'll recognize that. But like you said, it's the ones that the clients that you form a good relationship with, um, you've got that close sort of communication, you really invested. And then for some reason, it's like, because they go to another coach, that has to end. And it doesn't, it really doesn't have to end. Um, if anything, it should be more of a supportive thing. I think it also comes from the other coaches too.
Mhm.
I think we could be more collaborative as an industry. It's like,
I dream of
if
that.
we're all focused on the client result,
Mhm.
um, then it's going to be a full circle at some stage. Like there's going to have to be a bit of giving, but eventually it'll come back, because if we all niche into certain areas, like for example, if you're a niched bikini coach and you get an open bodybuilder come to you because they like what you do and they like your personality, and you send them on to someone else who's niched into open bodybuilders, and then some bikini client inquires with them and they send it to you. It's like it's this referral system
Mhm.
because you're both working at your capacity, like in one niche as professionally as possible.
Yeah. I
That
guess
would
it's
be an
what you want.
amazing.
Yeah, and it's what you want that's best for the client as well. Like even it's so hard as well because I feel like if you get people that come to you that like you're not confident enough in like prepping, or you just don't even enjoy this, even if you don't enjoy the category, like you know what I mean? Like if you don't even enjoy prepping men's physique athletes, like why should you take it on just to take on the client? You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
So I
Yeah.
feel like you're right. Like you should be able to just pass it around and just be like, I know this person's really good, so like go
Mm.
for it, man. Like I'm sure he'll take you on, sort of thing.
Yeah, and we were talking about before with like what's the ideal number of clients to be like absolute best on your game, best service possible. Like it's around that 50 to 70, right? Something
Mm.
around there.
Yeah.
Um, and so like there's that many people in the industry. We can all have 50 to 70 clients and not
Mm-hmm.
be in direct, like we're not going to be competing with each other if we all have 50 to 70 clients. Like
Yeah.
there's plenty of clients out there. So, the onus is on us as coaches to be the best at what we do in one particular area, because it's like becoming a specialist doctor. You're never going to run out of people with back injuries. But if you're not the best at back injury treatment, no one's going to come to you because they're just going to go somewhere where they've been recommended or referred on because they're the better doctor for that particular injury.
Yeah.
So if we niche into one particular thing, you might be the best bikini coach or physique coach, whatever it is, and everyone recognizes that. Then there's no, you might be. I think you see that at the high level, like with the Olympia coaches, but at the amateur level, that doesn't tend to happen. But I think it needs to. I think it needs to be something that the coaches are more collaborative with that type of
Yeah.
with that type of thing.
I'm probably you're personally like obviously a few years ahead of me to a point where you potentially have niche down more. With the position we're probably in as well, it does come down to who you serve, what the clients that come your way, unfortunately.
That's right. No, that's
And
right. Yeah.
there is situations, especially for myself, where I've been like, okay, I've been really good with this specific category, and I've been not so good at this specific category. But then you're also stuck with that tear of like, well, was I not good at this category because I wasn't,
Yeah.
or who I was actually dealing with? But yeah, at that top end, it is rare at the amateur level. Like for example, there's not really anyone out
Mm.
there who I would say there's obviously guys that really like heavily focus on bikini, but even
Mm.
then, I do question: do they really? Is that really where they are, or is that where they landed?
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make is
Yeah.
there's got to be a bit of a sort of identification of what you're actually niching, what your focus is.
Mm.
It's like a GP saying he's a specialist back injury guy because everyone that comes to him is a back injury, but it's
Mhm.
not actually his focus.
Yeah.
And so if you can niche and sort of create a very clear identification of what you niche and specialize in, then it's very easy to draw those people in, I feel.
Yeah.
Would you
Um,
feel like you have a niche at this point?
yeah, I mean, I would say that that's leaning towards bikini just because of the fact that I actually am more focused on that in
Mm.
terms of my enjoyment factor,
I
right?
must say
It's
I do enjoy bikini.
mm,
Yeah, I do. I
mm,
think it helps when my girlfriend's like obsessed.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's something. It's definitely like if someone said to me, okay, one category for the rest of your life, what would you coach? It'd be bikini because it's the most competitive, and I also agree with the lifestyle, right? So like if I was a female and obviously understand what I understand now, then it would be something that's attractive in terms of the lifestyle because I've been on the other side of living like an open bodybuilder, and I, as much as I admire that and I coach it and I have a total respect for, obviously I have a lot of large clients as well,
Mm.
and I'm not sort of taking away what they do, but I don't personally enjoy living that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I would say at the moment I live more like a bikini athlete, right?
Mhm.
I don't eat in a crazy surplus. I train 80%. You know what I mean? Like I don't sort of have this hypertrophy target for every single day. It's just quality, quality foods, quality training, get enough sleep. Like that's sort of the lifestyle targets. Whereas for open bodybuilding, you're adding so many other elements that really takes, you have to be really focused on that. You have to really want the outcome. So I think my ethics and morals align more with that division, with bikini.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's more aligned with what like typical health and fitness is. So I feel like when I'm coaching it, I'm not telling someone to kind of risk their health either, you know.
Yeah.
It sort of sits in different avenues of who I am, and I agree with a lot of it. But then also the judging and the criteria is so competitive, and you've got to really have an eye for it. You've got to really understand like what someone needs to do to satisfy the criteria for them. And I feel like that is something that possibly isn't really understood. So there's also a massive opportunity there. So I see that. Um, and I also really enjoy working with very dedicated females because they seem to be, no offense to my male clients if you're listening, but they seem to be far more, what's the word, resilient. Like some of the bikini athletes I work with are some of the hardest, toughest mentally that I've ever worked with. And that to me is like when you combine all that together, you can see why I like it.
I will ask a question for you. We did a podcast the other day with Joe on females and PEDs, and he did say
Yep.
you like the situation. You do like the fact that bikini is obviously a little bit more. I'm going to use the word benign in that regard.
Mm.
Obviously,
Yep.
there's going to be a cohort of females who don't abide by that ideology. There is going to be
Yep.
lines that are blurred and boundaries that are pushed. And so in that case, are you more of the HRT optimization, like well, PEDs which optimize outcomes rather than PEDs which are more aggressive? I'm guessing so. Sorry if that's a little bit
Yeah.
yeah.
No, 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 not at all. I
Yeah.
think this is my stance on it is like I recognize both.
Mm.
I think like obviously for a bikini athlete, you're always going to want to be sensible with, which avenue you go down. Like, is it a training issue? Is it a hormone optimization issue? Is it a lifestyle issue? Like, what can we address before we look down that route at all? And then obviously when you go down that track, what can you do first? What can you optimize before you optimize hormones? Like, can you do something that's low risk first? And then you also, while you're doing that, you're kind of like assuming, or you're trying to sort of accumulate the lowest risk possible. So I don't think there's a right or wrong, because at the end of the day, it comes down to what that individual needs to succeed. And I just follow the results, man. Like, if someone needs to do something and they want to win and they're willing to take the risk, then that's what we do. But at the same time, I'll always say, listen, this is what you're trying to achieve. This is the risk that you're going to take on by doing that particular thing. Are you okay with that? Because there's other ways we could do that. It's just going to take a little bit longer. It might take a little bit more patient, or whatever it is. And then we're going to allow the client to make the decision for themselves based on the information that I give them. So I'll always try to take the safest, slowest, but then you're always going to get athletes who are like, no, I'm doing this. I'm gonna, take on the risk. That's fine, but I want to achieve X, Y, Z, and I want to achieve it this quickly. So part of my job as a coach, I believe, is to inform people about what's happening and what it takes. But at the same time, I don't want to prevent someone from results, right? So that you've got to kind of fall somewhere on that slider. You don't want to be up the end here where you're just sort of abusing things, but you don't want to be on the other end here where you're just staying natural because it's the healthiest thing. So you've got to kind of find, can we optimize training? Perfect. Do we need to recover from the training? Okay. You know what I mean? You're kind of going to end up along this direction at some stage. But it's assuming what are the athlete's morals and ethics around it, and what are mine, and do they align? And so if we have those things aligning together, then we can have a conversation around how far they're willing to push things, but also how far it's necessary. Because like you said before, it's bikini. So it tends to not need any abuse whatsoever. And so with that particular division, I have a much easier job coaching, because I know you just don't need to mess yourself up. You don't need to. And so that's why I really enjoy coaching it, because I know the limit. I'm like, you just don't need to do this. And so we can get all these results over here. You don't even need to worry about this end, because it's just not necessary for the division. Whereas for divisions like wellness and open bodybuilding, I mean, there's a gray area around this certain zone, because, I've definitely worked with people where we have pushed it and we have got more results. So you can't sit there and tell everyone that you're not going to get more results if you push things, because it has worked for people. Right. And I mean, it's like the old school way of just like, I wouldn't say drug abuse, but there are, we all know of people who have had issues and passed away because they've really abused the drugs. But is it that, or is it just going to happen to them anyway? But you can see that there is a sort of an assumed amount of results that you get by pushing drugs further in these other divisions. Whereas for bikini, you just don't need to enter that, because the target of muscle mass is so much smaller. So you have an assumed finite amount of risk that you need to take at all. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Yeah,
it does. And one of the things I will raise on that too, I have seen in situations with bikini, they do push that boundary a little bit harder with the PEDs to try to offset the fact that they may not be on a level of muscularity or conditioning or proportions to get there. But I've seen situations in recent times as well where it's very obvious that those boundaries have been pushed from a PED perspective, but there's no understanding for the criteria level requirements. And then as a result, just blow further away from where they actually needed to be. And they end up placing worse.
Exactly. And that's what I mean by finite amount of risk that's required, because you already know. It's like, if you know this water bottle is 750 mils or whatever it is, then you don't need to pour a liter in. You already know what the capacity is. So I know that's a bit of a stretch as a metaphor, but it's like,
it is.
For
but
bikini,
we get the point.
For bikini, your silhouette, right, is already a finite thing. You don't, with these other categories, the silhouette is kind of like, we could get a little bit bigger, a little bit denser. For bodybuilding, I mean, there's no cap on the silhouette at all. With bikini, there is an absolute cap on that silhouette.
Mm.
And so if you've already capped that silhouette, now what are we talking about? Density, shape, proportion, condition. And all these things don't require a lot of hormones to achieve.
Mhm.
So we already know that if you've got the silhouette you require, then we can throw those things out the window and focus on internally on all these other variables. Because yes, at some point, maybe a little bit of hormonal help will, I mean, give you that visual change that you're looking for, like maybe a little bit of cosmetic difference on stage. But we're talking about weeks, not months or years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, the involvement of those things is very, very small in comparison to the timeline. So like you might spend 20 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever, prepping, and 5% of that time you've got hormones in there that is really only for a cosmetic improvement rather than for recovery, things like that. So it's assuming, based on that understanding, okay, the silhouette is already maxed out. Now all these things we need to improve are things we can control away from hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And our job now is to ensure hormones stay balanced. So sometimes the worst thing you could do is add in hormones because you've already got a balanced physique.
Yeah.
So, that would be like, if I've got someone looking how they need to look, the last thing I want to do is add 20 milligrams of Anavar. That's the last thing I want to do because I already look how I want them to look.
Mm.
So, that's where I feel like it's very easy to coach that from a PED perspective, because you just, it's like, okay, where are you now? Where do you need to be? How much of that is going to come from hormones? Very little, right?
Mm.
It might be the polishing, the finishing touch in a prep, or it might be the way you break plateaus in a off season. But outside of that, it's not needed. And that's where I agree with Joe, because you can get a lot of results from optimizing a lot of different pathways, before you even worry about whatever else there is, and I think that's the biggest thing. Outside of that, though, I will speak on the fact that my main concern is just getting results. So if someone's not getting results, they're training as hard as they possibly can. Like, let's say they're breaking all those stereotypes of what bikini is, what is needed in bikini to progress, and you're just not seeing results. Nothing's happening. You just can't recover. You like whatever. Then I'm kind of going to disregard those previous rules, because this person wants that result. And so maybe they're one in a million that needs a little bit more help, right? And I'm not going to go, oh no, it's not safe. It's bikini. We don't need it. We've already exhausted every avenue. But to get to that point, we're talking about years of trial and error. You know what I mean? We're not talking about, 3 weeks didn't work, we're going to chuck Anavar in. Like, that's not the result. It's like, we've done a couple of preps, we're just not getting the density we need. Something's wrong. Every time we pull calories, get conditioned, you just lose the muscle. There's something wrong with your recovery capability, whatever it is. Now we're going to bring out the big guns, right?
It's funny.
Because,
on that as well, it obviously draws point. I'll let you finish, but it draws point to the idea that context is everything.
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, especially you hear things across the industry about people, and I've reached a point where I can hear whatever I want about a coach, and I sort of goes in one ear the other, because I think, well, yeah, that does sound like a little bit fucked up, but until I've dealt with a client myself, I can't make a judgment, because I've had clients have had to do things that if you saw it on paper, if they left me as a coach and inquired with you and you saw that on paper, you'd probably be like, what the fuck? Okay. But I've got other clients who is on the other end of the spectrum. You probably think, how is that all you're doing and you're progressing like that?
You must be
But
lying.
Yep.
like, there's cases where people might have to do neurocardio a day and go below 1,000 calories. And there's other women who could be on 16, 1,700 just doing step count, no lipolytics, and coming in perfectly. It's just until you've really dealt with that client, and in this case as well, like, you don't know that. Like, and even then, we haven't even considered the fact that they may have said to you, I want to do whatever here. I'm happy. I want to take this risk, this risk, this risk. And you're like, okay, well, I'll meet you halfway. Where a normal client coming out the gates, you would never even think about that.
I was talking to someone about the other day too in Australia. It's like, if someone says they're taking 10 milligrams of Anavar, it's probably 2 because of the quality.
Yeah.
Like, it's so like half the time you can't believe a thing anyone says about anyone at all, or even what they're doing. Because like if someone, I've had clients before who say they're taking something, they're taking more. They just do because they want to do what they want to do. This is not recent, but definitely in the past.
Yeah.
And then they leave for whatever reason, and they say that's what you told them to do. You know what I mean? Like, and you're like, no, I never did that. You just took more than what I said. So, exactly what you said. I mean, you got to take rumors with a grain of salt, if not just ignore them completely. But often the situation is that I'll get female athletes come do a consult. We'll look at what they're doing, and more often than not, it's like, okay, cut all that out. Let's focus on these main elements like sleep, digestion, training quality. It's never really a solution to just add more drugs. I mean, especially for bikini. Like I've never been in a situation. Yeah.
Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
I've never been in a situation where I'm like, oh, you're just not doubling your NFR. That's all it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ever.
I think one of the biggest problems we actually see in bikini coaching as well is probably the training requirements aren't addressed.
Yeah.
Because that is something a lot of the time as well when you do have, like I picked up a client recently who sent me her previous program, and what she sent me, I'm like, there's no specificity here, and you're not going to progress. She was doing like 40 sets a session, and 30 of them wrong glutes. And it's just people don't want to believe that it's the training which is the problem, because it seems like that's the one thing they've been getting right for so long. And then directly that becomes an area where a lot of coaches disregard, which is to think about. And they'll start to think, well, it's whatever else it might be, they'll start to believe is an excuse. And then when you really pull them up on that, and even the fact that they might not be training as hard as they need to.
Yeah, but even like me now, it's like since I've started getting coached by Matt, and it's like with my training, it's like I look at my training, I've been with him for 4 weeks now, and I compare some of the shit that I was doing 4 weeks ago to just now, and I look at it, and like even being a coach, I sit there and think to myself, I'm like, yeah, why wasn't I doing that? Or like, why was I loading this exercise so much heavier? It's like I wasn't even really feeling it. It's like now I've reduced load, and it's like it's way better. Like, of course, I'm gonna fucking grow my back now because I'm doing this pull down harder. Like,
yeah, but why didn't you double your test?
Well, fuck, I think it's always the easy way.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's much easier if you've got hundreds of clients to just go, here, take this. It's much harder. It takes a lot more time to really dive in and extract all the data and figure out what's going wrong. That's hard. It takes more time. It's very easy to just give someone more NFR. Right.
Yeah, and Navars more or less all everyone knows as well. It's the easiest thing to take. Easiest thing to administer. Like, for example, you tell someone to take 20 megs of Anavar a day, they won't flinch, but you tell them, hey, we're going to put you on 3 milligrams of test a week to get your hormones back in place. And it's like, whoa, I'm not taking test. This idiot's telling me to take test. And then you start hearing the room. I remember we had one where I don't know if you're a believer in, like, obviously T4, T3 therapy, where we'd mimic the replacement dose when we saw down regulation in a prep. And we mentioned it to a couple of people, and they were saying, as if you, like, that's ridiculous. And it's like, aren't you the same person that gets your clients running electro when they're 4 weeks out? Like, like it's literally mimicking your natural production. And obviously some clients don't see down. I've had clients that don't see any down regulation in, like, the back end on their thyroid. Like Julian gets no down regulation, for example. He'll sit at like T3 will be 6 to 7 when he's like 3 weeks out, where others it's like almost like in the ground.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, as a female, if you're taking anything hormonal for longer than 4 weeks and you're not TRT as well, if you're not replacing your tiny amount of test, you're going to have real big issues later, because that thing, that NFR or Primobolan or whatever it is that you're taking is reducing your natural test. So that's the issue, is like generally these females who take longer cycles because that's what their coach tells them to do, and they're not replacing their testosterone, they end up with none, and then there goes the progesterone, and then you got really big recovery times, like huge, and that's where you end up with really, really like out of shape athletes as well when they finally recover, because their whole system's crashed. So yeah, emphasis is on the short, sharp periods of time. That's kind of like what works best. But I won't go into that too much right now. But that's another thing to remember, is like, you can't it's not just take Anabar and pray. It's like you've got to understand what it's actually doing to your natural levels. A lot of people will get bloods done and be like, oh, why is my testosterone low and I'm taking Anabar? It's like, that's what it does, So yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll try to bounce back a topic. So when we're doing transition from bodybuilding to coaching, we spoke about it off there. But you were saying basically how it allowed you to go all in as well. And like, was that a tough decision to sort of make that transition from bodybuilding to full-time coaching? Obviously, you were coaching before, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, man, toughest thing overdone. I still struggle with it, honestly. Like, I really love what I do. I'm really grateful, and like I love my team, I love my athletes, love where I'm headed. I've got a really like solid drive and positive about what I'm doing, but there is definitely a huge part of me that doesn't get that sort of outlet that that I was getting when I was competing. And I
Mm.
think building an identity, like from a young 20-year-old to early, like I was 29 when I retired from it. Um, like that's my identity. That's who I am. Like no one knew me other than the big guy. That was me. Like my friends, like I would always take Tupperware to parties and clubs, and that was me for 10 years. So it kind of was a bit of an identity crisis. But I think having something that I was so passionate about made it easier. I think if I didn't have coaching, it would have been a lot harder. So I think that's why I'm so grateful and so happy with what I'm doing, because it's sort of made that transition really easy. Well, easier. Sorry, not really easy because it wasn't,
Yeah.
but easier because it's not like I've given it up completely and I don't care about it at all. It's like I still have that passion. I'm just addressing it in a different way. But yeah, man, like it is hard because I'll see guys that I followed, or like even like it's not that I don't like when people succeed, because I do, but there's always that thought where you're like, oh, I could have done that. I could have pushed myself and seen where I went, and maybe I could have won that show, or maybe I could have been whatever. And you always have those thoughts because it's normal. But I think like addressing it through then taking that energy and helping my athletes be what I wasn't able to, or like not what I wasn't able to, what I chose not to,
Mhm.
um, makes it easier because there is a capacity mentally, and I'll say this to everyone all the time: you either have it or you don't. And a lot of people will do a couple of shows and realize they don't have it. Not the capacity or the genetics; it's just you don't have the mental side, or you just don't really love it as much as you thought you did. And that's what I mean by you have it or you don't. And I just didn't have it.
Did you turn pro?
To No, I didn't.
Yeah,
No, I
cool.
came second twice at a pro qualifier. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so and I think after not turning pro that long for that many shows, I did 28 shows. Um,
28.
there's a 28. Yeah, there's a
That's catching up to me with
realization.
boys. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a realization that like I was always right there. There always had like the expectation to turn pro, but there was something that was missing. Whether it's like me not giving 100%, I don't know, because I always felt like I did give 100%. But you never really know, right? Like you can only kind of do your best. But if you don't turn pro, like after that many shows, I think there's a part of you that goes, well, am I really doing this for fun, or am I doing this because I've done it for this long? Like I was saying before,
Yeah, of
you've put
course.
so much in, you've put so much time and money and effort into something. That's why you continue, rather than because it's just what you want to do.
Mm.
And I think that was a realization for me, was I was only doing it because I'd put that much time and effort into it. And I think at the end of it, the realization is it's allowed me to be the type of coach I am. And for that, there's no regrets at all. It's a deep gratitude, because having that many shows experience and sort of being at the limits of myself mentally and kind of experiencing that has allowed me to connect with athletes at that level on a different capacity to if I'd just been a coach.
Mm.
And so I'm grateful for that. I like that about myself.
The
Who
reality is as
beat
well,
you?
if you
I was
had
gonna
a
say, do you remember who beat you at those pro qualifiers?
Um, remember Cyril? Cyril, he turned pro, and then Nathan James Williamson.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Nathan, I was going to say, is have any of them actually gone ahead and done anything with their
Is he
bodybuilding?
prepping now, actually?
Nathan,
Nathan's,
Yeah.
but like,
Nathan's still going.
Not really. I mean, not yet, anyway.
yeah,
It's hard as an open bodybuilder.
Like, who's that?
It's hard as an open bodybuilder to go on the pro circuit and have it.
Well,
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And that's kind of like now when I do coach, I mean, the Dave, if he's listening, it's the same. That's why I'm so OCD and pedantic and like hard on these athletes at that level, because it's like you may have the physicality, you may have the potential, but like there's little things like your posing and your core control and your conditioning and your headspace when you're doing all this stuff. You've got to be able to be in like the depths of your pain and misery and still smile and still be happy, because how are you going to get through endless preps before you get to the end of whatever it is you're trying to achieve? You've got to be able to just love that so much that it's worth having no fat on your feet and hurting every time you stand up, you know? And if you don't have that, then unfortunately it's probably not for you, because there are people that you're going to compete against who are like that. And that's when you're just going to get absolutely demolished, because these people do this like they're just sadistic, right? They're just mentally unwell. That's how much they love this pain. And if you're not willing to meet them at a level, then open bodybuilding is not for you, because, you know, look at like someone like Martin. I mean, you might argue that he gets in condition easily, but that dude loves suffering. Let's be honest, right? He loves suffering. You can tell. He's depleted as possible as he possibly could, as much as he possibly could be, and he's still like foaming at the mouth to just get harder. Like it's so obvious that he's got that.
Yeah.
Same as Chris Bumstead. You can tell he's just a little bit fucking left of center, and he's just absolutely nuts, right? He has good speech. He has good speeches, and he says some good stuff. But internally, he's a freak. He's an absolute nutcase, right? No offense, like that's in the most positive way possible.
Of course, yeah.
But you get what I'm trying to say, right? This is not a normal endeavor, and if you're going to do that on a pro level against other people who are very, very good at it, then you just have to have something else, you know. And I don't have that, because I do it for different reasons. It's a challenge, or it's a test of myself. And like, it's like when you do that a couple of times, you don't really need to prove anything to yourself. You don't need to go, oh, I'll see if I can do this. You know you can, you just don't want to anymore, right? That's the difference. And so that's kind of where I got to, is like, I know I can do what I need to do. I just don't know if I want to do it anymore. I don't know if I want to put myself through that. And so as soon as you have that thought, it's not worth doing, because, you know, the people that you compete against never think, oh, I don't want to do this. It's like they will die before they stop, right? And these are the people that are winning shows. So at that level anyway, I mean, you can win a couple of national shows or whatever, but like I'm talking about winning the Olympia. Like look at Samson, right? Like if you've watched his story, that dude was peaking for a show in his hotel room. Like he didn't have a gym, he couldn't leave, and he was prepping he was doing push-ups, right? And he was peaking for his show by doing push-ups and bicep curls with the couch, and he looked like that. So you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like he's physically looking like that using chairs and shit. So like, excuse me, if you don't have that mindset, and you don't have that physicality, and you don't have those genetics, you've got to just really love it or be a nutcase. Otherwise, you can't compete on any level.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of where I was at. I was like, like I have one of those elements. Like I think I put muscle on pretty good. I think I love the process, but like the other things that other people have, I just can't match them on it. And that became really obvious to me at the end, the last couple of shows. You know, because as soon as it got to stage time, I was like, oh, okay, next. You know, I didn't really care about going on stage. I didn't really everyone would be like, oh, you know, I thought you should have won. And I'm like, dude, I don't even care about this. Like, it's not even, don't even give me pity. I don't care about the placing or anything like that. I just want to keep prepping. I want to do more of this. And so that's the part I miss, is the pursuit, like the daily grind, you know, get up, cardio, like eat your meals, like control yourself mentally. Like those little things make you feel really fulfilled. Actually, Ian Valieri said it really well on the podcast, that latest podcast that they did. He said it really well. He misses the is exactly what I believe as well. He misses that just being completely consumed by a goal
Yeah.
and nothing else matters.
Yeah.
That feeling is something I miss.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was listening to that this morning actually, and listening to him talk about that, and they were saying about that was when they were talking about going back and competing or whatever, and they're all saying, would he do it again? But like,
Yeah.
right, I feel like it is. It's that it just like it gives you something that consumes you that you feel like you're striving towards constantly.
It's clear.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like,
like
okay,
your
this is
control.
my show date. It's like, okay, I've got to be absolutely fucking peeled out of my mind for this day. Like, so I have to do everything I can between now and however many weeks my prep is to be like make that deadline.
Yep.
That's what a lot of people get lost with though. Like when it finishes, I feel like, and that's why people always want to be in a prep. It's because off seasons are just they're monotonous, but like there's no real. I feel like people sort of lose the idea of the pursuit to be better. I feel like that's why people struggle in the off season because there's no clear cut goal. It's like this off season could be a year, this off season could be 3 years, and it's like there's no definitive end date. So I feel like that's why people get lost, and that's why people get consumed by prepping.
For sure. Yeah, you see it all the time.
There's nothing else in like if you really think about it though, it's such a clear, concise goal that there's nothing that you can really set yourself up for in life which is that has that much of a definitive endpoint. Because you got to think even in business growth and financial goals and even goals with your clients, like it's either a never-ending pursuit which you wonder if you're ever satisfied with, or it's a pursuit which heavily relies on an external party, which could not come to the table. Like let's say it's coaching a client. You could say you're really dialed in and you really have this goal of your client achieving X, Y, Z, but that relies on the client or cohort of clients applying themselves for an extended period. That relies on them being mentally and emotionally invested for that extended period of time. When it's you competing, it's just you.
That's right.
Complete control over every step. And if you want it, you can do everything you can to move towards that. There's very little in life that is that definitive. And I think that's probably what makes people so obsessed with it as well.
Yeah, and that's literally the only reason why I was doing it, because it gave me, I was at a particular point, I guess, in my 20s where I needed guidance. Like I needed to be sort of mentored or like something. I ended up getting there through my own experiences, but like bodybuilding gave me that direction, and I feel like that was the only reason I was doing it, because I had a purpose for every day, right? Where other people would end up in the wrong groups or like going out, smashing drugs, whatever it is. I was prepping, and it sort of, the realization was there that I was like, I was only kind of doing this for therapy. It wasn't really a pursuit or a career or anything like that. It was just like, I loved the process and it gives me that clarity. But it wasn't, the problem is when you are unable to be useful as well, right? So like, I feel like as a man, if you're not useful in some way, you're not really a man. Like whether it's to your kids or your girlfriend or at your job or whatever it is, if you're not actually useful and you're not serving your purpose, then what is your purpose? And that's where I was at. I was like, well, all I'm doing is getting bigger. There's no real purpose to my existence. It kind of like that was the big realization. It's like, fuck, if I die tomorrow, is anyone going to miss my existence? Like, it sounds pretty deep, but that was, is there any relevance to me getting up every day other than my own personal selfishness? And there really wasn't. And that's kind of what drove the change, man. Like now I feel like if I don't get up, there's all these people relying on me, and like I've got all this stuff to responsibility, and I actually have a genuine purpose that I open my eyes and I'm like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
Where I didn't have that for a long time. So that I feel like as a young guy, you definitely need something, where prepping. Bodybuilding is a great place to start, but if you don't see where it's going, exactly what you just said, bro, is like, it's more of you lack that drive to improve, and you're just doing it because you feel safe, where you feel focused.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous place to be because it's not productive,
I feel like bodybuilding has definitely given me a lot of opportunity as well, as it obviously has you. But it's important for a lot of these who are in those trenches to recognize that Yeah, other areas of life also require attenuation.
Oh, dude, seriously, I wish someone told me that when I was like 25.
Yeah. But yeah,
It's
even
like,
then,
yeah,
the principles carry over into other areas of life. I feel like just some people do because
yeah,
you see two ways. You see some people who compete or have competed or are in and out of it who are really successful. And you see the ones that are
mm,
so dialed into it that their life's falling apart and they don't even realize it.
Mm.
And I feel like it's
yep,
important in those circumstances that, well, it's probably important that some people around them tell them this exact advice because you
yeah,
can very easily transfer that commitment, those principles, that resilience to other areas of life and really succeed. And there's no reason you can't do both.
yeah,
It does come down to a lot of factors as well.
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And how you handle it as well. Because I'm a big believer in someone's personality type, someone's just general behaviors are going to dictate how well they can successfully navigate their way through a prep. For example, I look at
yep,
my brother who moves through preps and like nothing really flinches. Like he still works like
mm,
normal. He still socializes like normal, doesn't want to socialize.
Oh, not at all.
mm,
But then you see people who go completely recluse
Yeah.
and everything's terrible. And at the end of the prep, you do, I don't know what you do, but we tend to do like a call post show with the client, just
mm,
like sitting on Zoom for like however long it takes to sort of reflect and map out everything, just to sort of bit of a
mm,
debrief. And sometimes in no debrief, you'll see the person say, okay, now I've got to get my finances back together and I've got to get working back together. I've got to get this job back and I don't want this and this anymore. And it's like, did you really put that all on hold for that 24 weeks?
yeah,
It was like, did you
exactly.
really let
Yeah,
your life go
You know
down
what
to
as
the
well? I
bank
feel
balance
like
of zero for it? Yeah.
it's also very much
yeah,
dependent. It's like how Tim was saying before about like having the purpose. Like you wake up every day with a purpose of like you've got to cater to these clients in the morning, right? So like when I was in prep, it was like I was waking up every day to be like, all right, like I have to be on for these people for I don't know 8 hours of the day, and then it's like from there, it's like it's just me. You know what I mean? So I feel
mm,
like it depends on the kind of person you are. I think whether you're going to put things on hold. It also depends on who's depending on you, right? Um,
yeah.
I don't know how people can just go into a prep and be like, I'm putting everything on hold. It's like life doesn't go on hold because of prep.
Most people don't have much
Someone,
to put on hold.
someone, someone put up, maybe John Jewett, I think, put up a thing the other day, or maybe yesterday, where it's, oh, and actually it was Callum, and he said nothing. The quote was, well, I don't know if it was a quote, but he just said nothing changes once you win a pro card.
He
Oh
did. I
yeah,
That's
saw that.
something that
It was Callum.
that's
Yep.
some
Callum.
that's something that I had a big realization of as well in the last couple of shows. I was like, hang on, I turned pro. I probably will use this to go and live in the States. That was my plan. But other than that, what changes? Nothing really changes. So if I don't get my shit sorted, and chase what I'm actually passionate about, you're gonna have all these accolades and like all this success, but it's not really like nothing changes in your life. You don't become a better person. You don't suddenly make more money or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. It doesn't happen just because you turn pro. And so that realization was like, okay, I've got to sort all this other stuff. And that's kind of what simulated the retirement because I can't, me personally, my personality is I can't do two things at once. I've got to focus on one thing. And I know that about myself. And so I knew for me to be able to do that, organize those things that I hadn't organized for so long, I had to sort of stop this one aspect that was taking up all of my time. Um, because I would end up turning pro eventually. I would end up doing pro shows, whatever it is, but I would never fully organize these things and get these things sorted that I'd put off for so long. Um, and that's something that now, like if I was as a coach, I definitely sort of touch on that a lot because if I see someone who's in check-ins sort of discussing things they're struggling with or whatever, it's like cool. The physique changes and all the diet and the programming that can sit to the side for a sec. Let's actually have a chat about your management of your life and like your input with your family and things like that. Because for you to be the best athlete you can be, you've got to have all those cups spinning. Like that cup spinning metaphor where you've got to keep everything moving.
Mm.
Mhm.
Like maybe in prep you keep this one spinning a little bit faster, but you've got to touch everything up at some point to keep it all moving. And sometimes that's all someone needs to really get on their game and be aligned with their values. And when someone's aligned with their values, they look their best. It's
Mhm.
like it's this magical sort of position where you're like, hang on, I have no idea what you're doing because I haven't changed anything. The program's the same, diet's the same, everything's the same, but you look better. Why is that? Well, it's just because everything's aligned for this person. Everything's balanced in the least balanced way possible. But
Mhm.
it's managing those variables so that you are the best version of yourself, and that's when your stress is gone and your anxiety, and you are truly your best version, not just physically, but
Yeah.
that mental aspect has a huge impact on the way you look.
It's I'm a big believer as well, same as you. Like I want to make sure someone's life is in order, lack of
Yeah,
like in the least complex way to say it. If relationships in order, if workplace is in order, if finances in order, if mental health is in order, so on and so forth, only then are they really best served by going into a prep. And if those boxes aren't ticked,
100%.
just going to make things worse because they will go through a period where they try to completely suppress that and then
Yeah.
they're smacked in the face when it finishes. But one of the things I've actually been raising lately with clients going into prep is the importance of having a hobby. And
Oh yeah.
the thing, and it's a hobby, and I say to them, it needs to be a hobby that you get no gain out of. So
Mm.
it doesn't complement you. Do you get what I mean? Completely unconstructive. It needs to be a hobby where when you're participating in whatever it is, that's all you're thinking about at that time. And I
Yeah,
think
like a computer
more than
game
that.
or like
Yeah, just
some sort of like scrapbooking or some shit.
yeah, and it can't because I said that to one of my clients recently. He said, "Oh, but that's not productive." And I said, "That's the idea.
Yeah, yeah,
While you're doing that,
100%.
all you care about, like you don't think you've forgotten about the prep, you've got about the process. Because at the end of the day, with a prep, my mentality is towards the end, you're going to feel it, and you're probably going to have to. This is going to go out the window a little bit, but it's eating your meals, it's training, it's doing your cut, it's doing what's prescribed to you every day. Nothing else should really change. And the second you start to become overconsumed by that process, I feel like it does someone more harm than good.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
You still got to go to work.
yeah,
You
you still
can't,
got to work.
it's just like not letting it consume you.
And when you see the stress come up in the preps is when you see an individual usually start to suffer them, to struggle the most, like in terms of progressing.
Yeah.
Yep, hold on. Do we just freeze?
Yeah. Am I frozen?
Yeah, I think so. You were.
No, I'm
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Hold on.
I don't know. I think I'm good now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You're
think
right.
you're good now. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it wasn't. My phone started ringing and I was like, okay, give me a second. Hold on. Okay.
It's just a bit laggy.
God. Is it working?
Mm.
Yeah, it's just laggy for me.
Yeah, that's okay. Is I think it might be. Is just him. Is it just him that's
Yeah,
making? I'll cut this
yeah.
part out.
So
It's okay.
I can see and hear you too.
Yeah. What should I do?
If you can hear us, Tim, just leave and join back.
Oh, yeah, do that. We'll pause it.
I think I'm good.
There you go.
God, why is it so slow?
Must be snowing outside. Oh,
Okay.
wait.
Yeah.
Am I good?
There we go. Oh,
Yeah, it's better.
that's better.
Yeah, it's better. Yeah, I think
It's a
so.
snowstorm.
Oh,
But
no.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like people just get consumed by everything in a prep.
No, it's still a bit frozen. Did you want to just leave and join again?
Yep, hang on.
Yeah, let's do that. Because I'll just cut this bit out. It's not a problem.
Technical difficulties, mate.
Guys, I got to bounce in about 5 minutes as well.
It's okay. We'll wrap it up.
No, if you keep going, just if
Yeah.
I can't,
Where are you going, mate?
nowhere grandparents over.
Spewing for Halloween celebrations.
Not even that. Just they just come every like couple months for like a nice dinner.
Uh,
So
really?
I can hear everyone downstairs like waiting for me. Like, where the fuck is he? What's taking him so long? I'm like, bro, just eat.
It's because Michael spoke. It's because Michael spoke for half an hour.
I'm not eating their food
Before
anyway.
the fucking podcast started. Classic.
Yeah, we talked a bit of shit at the start, eh?
It took way too much shit.
It remind me to crop this out. I'll probably forget. Yeah. I just said to him, can you remind me to crop this out? Because I'll probably forget. I'm just
All
going to
good.
put it out.
I know.
Plus edits. All right. Where were we?
Do you get the time?
Hmm?
Timestamp? Just timestamp it?
No, it's okay. I won't forget. I won't fuck it up. It's okay.
I don't know.
All right.
What we're saying, just people getting consumed by prep.
Yeah.
You're saying. But
Moving and trying to just make it an integrated part of the lifestyle rather than like every day, just like, okay, cool. Today I need to do everything I can to click on.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's just fucking. I feel like it's just one of those things where you get to a point where I feel like it's when you get to the back end of a prep that you sort of start to let it consume you because you feel like it's like almost done. It's like I've done all of this to get here. It's like I have to give it 120% now.
Yeah, I felt like I fell into that trap a bit towards the end.
Yeah, and
because if I miss, it's like, what the fuck was the point of doing all of this?
what were your thoughts, Tim? It's frozen again.
It's frozen again.
Oh,
Might
no.
be
Is it?
easy.
I think we're good. I think we're good. Yeah.
My thoughts on having sort of hobbies that you can disconnect from. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and there's the fact that you could make it a more integratable part of your lifestyle rather than make it like a real relentless pursuit on the.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be an ideal place to be. But like for example, telling me that when I was doing those last shows, I would have been like, "Shut the hell up!" Like I'm all or nothing. I will die doing this prep, right? So like, and then the other thing too is like being a bodybuilder for so long, the thought of having any hobby outside of that was like revolting. I was so much a bodybuilder that like if someone was like, let's do a puzzle, I would have been like, shut the fuck up. Like,
Fuck
I'm
off.
gonna go, you know what I mean? It's like, so like, I 100% agree. And I think like in hindsight, that's something that had I had the right guidance and someone to just constantly remind me, you know, and be strong enough to kind of not take my abrupt disagreement to personally, um, like I needed a coach that was harder than my like ignorance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think it's good to have that mindset. And I think it's key. But you need someone. If you're going to enforce that, you need to really enforce it and be like, I'm not going to do your check-in until we solve this problem, right? Because otherwise, in my opinion, you're kind of just like feeding into that issue. So I think some people it's easy. They take that on easily, and other people they will go many years of disagreeing with you until they learn the hard way. And it could be like resulting in the end of a relationship or, something happens in their family or I don't know. But ultimately these people, I think if you have to coach someone that hard, like for example, I'm a good example. I am no longer bodybuilding. So like if someone was to coach me that hard to get me to be that balanced person, would I have continued? I don't know. And is it necessarily the coach's responsibility to do that? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a catch-22 where it's like the idea of that is great and you should do that. But at the end of the day, if an athlete is locked in and they're nailing the plan and everything's there, like sometimes the last thing I want to do is kind of get in the way of that.
Mm.
So it's the same conversation as the drugs, right?
Mhm.
It's great to talk about being mild and risk, focus on risk aversion, all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, you're always going to compete against someone who's taking twice the drugs as you. It's just the way the bodybuilding is. So I think, yeah, in theory, it's great. It's something I always talk about, but in practice, fuck, tell me how, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
For
super
me,
difficult to actually,
it's a theoretical concept because it's not something I've
yeah,
necessarily had to strongly enforce on someone because you encourage it,
yeah,
you teach it. But at the same time, when you're at 12 weeks out with a client, you sort of just let them be however they want to be because
yeah,
you're only so
exactly.
much. But it's just something I
And
usually, because right now, obviously, at the start of the preps for the next season. So I really try to get these ideas across because it's the only way
100%.
to do it. Whether that
Yeah,
is going to stick when we get towards the end is a whole nother
yeah.
conversation. Whether I would even stick with that. So,
Yeah, dude. And
yeah.
that's half the battle as a coach is like, how hard do I push this concept? Because, you know, with some athletes, they'll just be like, yeah, that's a mad idea. Like, didn't think of that. And then the next week they're doing this cool thing that's getting their mind off things and they look way better. And then other people are like, yeah, that sounds good. And then the next week they check in and it's the same problems.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, this would actually solve your problem, but I'm not going to waste my time constantly saying this in a check-in. It's like five to 10 minutes of my day that you're just ignoring completely. So you got to pick your battles, I guess. And at the end of the day, those people that are able to achieve some level of mental excursion, whatever you want to call it, are ultimately the ones that win. Because, I don't know if you guys listen to my podcast with Korean, and I asked her the same question. I said, what makes you so mentally strong or so mentally capable of like, going through loss and wins and having the same kind of almost like it's irrelevant the outcome, but she's happy if she wins and she's happy if she loses. And it's that she's got so much going on and so much sort of mental escape from the prep that it doesn't really impact her what happens because she's more than the prep.
Yeah.
And that's what makes her so resilient as an athlete because,
That's a good
you know,
listen. Some of that. Yeah.
her physique can look good or it can look bad. And she's just like, oh, I still got to do this and this and this. And I'm enjoying that tomorrow. And it makes her a champion because she just does what she needs to do and lets me deal with the rest, you know? And I feel like some people have that and some people don't. So I don't know if, I personally don't think like, yes, there are some band-aids that you can apply to situations to make the prep somewhat like, it's, how people talk about, oh, how do I deal with hunger? Things like that.
Yeah.
It's like, there are some things you can do. Ultimately, there are some things you can do to make it comfortable. But at the end of the day, you either have it or you don't, I feel. As blunt as that is.
I don't know why people suck up about being hungry in prep. I reckon it's the
the easiest part, yeah.
The easiest bit.
Yeah, maybe the cravings get a little bit rough.
Oh, fuck the cravings, bro. I'd rather not have to do fucking cardio and not feel heavy in the legs any day of the week.
To me, it's a social anxiety.
But see, that's what I mean is you either have that or you don't have that, right? It's like you're going to be like, why is there like, and other people are like, how do they not, so you're always going to have two groups of people. And I would love to know, it would be cool to do like a study on like winners and people who don't place and whether they tick the boxes in certain areas. Like how many of you guys have hobbies outside of bodybuilding? How many of you guys struggle with the hunger and get a bit of an idea of what champions consistently have in their corner?
But
because then
yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, I was just saying because then it's like, obviously you coach the athlete for where they're at, and if they are struggling with hunger, then you manage the hunger as best you can.
Yeah.
But there are clients that just they're hungry, but they don't have it. It's not an issue. You know what I mean? So
if you think back on all the winners of recent, all of them do have that balance.
Yeah.
If we look back, like we did a podcast with Andy Miller. We know Jackson quite well. For example, those two are good examples. Both of them have a lot going on outside of bodybuilding. Like Andy's career is completely different. He's got a family. Jackson's got a massive circle, a lot of friends. Like both have thriving careers, like and similar to Kareen as well, which you pretty much said. And I feel like now when I'm really trying to think about it, all the winners that have popped into my mind, I don't want to give more names because I don't know them well enough to say that. It does seem like they have enough going on that would allow them to disconnect. And I am thinking in my head, which means I want to say more. I know a few guys who are in that second, third place who are that really like this is it, and they're not taking those shows out, and it's by inches. It's not like it's their mind.
It's almost like a protective mechanism. Like in some ways, I know I'm not capable, and so therefore I need to double down to give myself more chances. It's almost like a defensive mindset rather than a proactive mindset. And I think that's why, consistently people who have that proactive mindset are succeeding is because they don't doubt themselves potentially. I don't know. I don't know if this is true or not, but that could be why, because I definitely felt that when I was competing is like, if I don't go all in, then, I'm not giving myself the best chances. Whereas if you change that to be like, my time will happen, my time will come, I just got to keep working hard. That's more proactive because then you're able to, actually live your life and not sort of worry about when it's going to happen. It's just at some point, my best is going to be the best. And if I don't enjoy the process, then, that'll happen and I'll just be a shell of a person because I don't have any, other things going on. And the win will feel good for 5 minutes, but then it'll be gone again and I'll be empty inside. So definitely something to that. Definitely.
Yeah. We might have to wrap it up there, but thanks for coming on, bro.
Is that an hour already? Is it?
Yeah, it's like an hour and 15. Yeah. Fuck, that's what I was thinking, man. I looked at the clock because Jude said I have to go at 1:45, and I'm like, oh shit. Probably been an hour. Yeah.
No, all good. All good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'd love to get you back on again, man. You're a good chat.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. My bad.
Yeah.
It's good,
Okay.
man. It's good when you're like that. I feel
Yeah,
like
that's what we
when
want.
people are quiet, it makes it worse. And when you have to poke and prod and fucking, there's nothing.
Because like to be honest, I'm looking at the run sheet and I'm sitting there. I'm like, damn, we got like through like a third of that.
A
That's
third.
okay.
I reckon we got through like 1 point on it and then just rambled into the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sort of like flowed
Just,
nicely.
Yeah, it did flow
just,
nice.
just old man rambling. That's
Oh,
all
I
it is.
got like notes on my page of stuff like to touch on from what we were touching on, and I'm like, all right, cool, we got that. Did you want to just give yourself a bit of a plug for anyone listening?
Oh man,
Brand page or business website or anything?
yeah, just follow my Instagram, Tim at 1%ers, Tim_1%ers,
Mhm.
or the main page 1%ers. It's 1PCNTRS, not percent sign, because you can't do that on Instagram.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, yeah, no other affiliations or anything like that. It's just me and the team. So yeah, if you want to ramble, ask me some questions and I'll be happy to ramble.
Yeah, no, sick, man.
You want to plug your podcast as well? What's your
Yeah,
podcast?
podcast too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we got a podcast. It's all about bikini, which has a lot of rambling, but it's more about bikini. Me and Kareen. So yeah, we pump out one episode a week, generally. So that's called Hourglass Podcast by 1%ers.
Cool.
And there's links all over social media. So if you want to listen to that, yeah, jump on there and have a look.
Yeah, perfect. All right, thank you, man.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.